You are about to be
trampled underfoot.
So I got a little fun one for you here, Eloy. It was 50 years ago this month, January 1969, that the first Led Zeppelin album was released.
Amazing. Amazing, dude.
Yeah. That album, still to this day, has some of my absolute favorite Led Zeppelin songs on it. And I had forgotten it for a few years, and I just recently listened to it again, and there's some good stuff back on that album, man.
I listened to it as well recently, and I was blown away.
Like the first song I ever heard off of the album was Dazed and Confused. And I don't even remember where I was when I heard that. And it's like, man, I got to check this out. And then I heard Communication Breakdown, and it's like, okay, no, I got to go check this album out. This band sounds good.
When I first bought the record, I was actually traveling to Chicago with my family, and we stayed a couple of weeks to do some seminars. And I spent the whole time in Chicago listening to Led Zeppelin 1. And I took my guitar with me as well. And I had the album, and it was a cassette. I think it was cassette. And I just back to back listening to it. It was just I might have bought it in Chicago. It's been so many years that I don't remember exactly the details, but the feeling with the cold and listening to that rockin' music, we're talking back when Walkmans were still popular. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
No, I got it a couple of years after it came out. I was only 8 years old when it came out. And I wasn't really, I don't know if I was sophisticated enough to buy a whole album, but I remember hearing Dazed and Confused, and I was like, wait a minute, what the heck is this? And then Communication Breakdown, that's what sold it for me. I said, no, I gotta go get this. I gotta go check it out.
Yeah, that album starts with Bam Bam, right? In the days of my youth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Times, Bad Times. It's the first tune on the album.
What a great way to start an album.
And you know, the funny part of it is the two songs that got me to buy the album are not my favorite songs on the album. My absolute favorite is You Shook Me.
Oh, really?
That real slow blues rhythm. I mean, it's the words are, I don't know, the lyrics are potentially harmless, but that rhythm is just flat out dirty. And that's all there is to it.
Oh, yeah.
And it just hooked me and grabbed me and said, oh, yeah, this is the one. This is the one.
Yeah, what an amazing, I mean, to be honest with you, I purchased, that was a great, listening to it again was really, it put me right back when I first listened to it the first. So did you own that album?
Yeah. In fact, I still have it on cassette, believe it or not. Most of my albums were lost many, many years ago, all the vinyl. So I repurchased them, a bunch of them on cassette, and then later on CD. But I have that one on cassette and on CD.
Nice.
Still.
When the English rock band the Yardbirds broke up in 1968, guitarist Jimmy Page was left with the rights to the name and contractual obligations for a series of concerts in Scandinavia. Page asked seasoned session player and arranger John Paul Jones to join as bassist.
John Paul Jones.
And hoped to recruit Terry Reid as singer. Reid declined to join but recommended Robert Plant, who met with Page at his boathouse in Berkshire. Page and Plant realized they had good musical chemistry together, and Plant asked former bandmate John Bonham to drum for the new group.
John Bonham.
The lineup of Page, Plant, Jones, and Bonham first rehearsed in September of 1968, shortly before a tour of Scandinavia as the new Yardbirds, performing some of the old Yardbirds material, as well as new songs, such as Communication Breakdown, I Can't Quit You, Baby, You Shook Me, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, and How Many More Times. After they returned to London following the tour, Page changed the band's name to Led Zeppelin, and the group entered Olympic Studios at 11 p.m. on the 25th of September, 1968, to record their debut album. The album contains a mix of original material worked out in the first rehearsals and covers and rearrangements of contemporary blues and folk songs. The sessions took place before the group had secured a recording contract and were paid for directly by the band. Recording took 36 hours of studio time over a span of a few weeks and cost less than £2,000 to complete. It was released by Atlantic Records on the 12th of January, 1969 in the United States and on the 31st of March in the United Kingdom. It was also one of the first albums to be released in stereo only. Prior to this, albums had been released in separate mono and stereo versions. Led Zeppelin's front cover, which was chosen by Jimmy Page, features a black and white image of the burning Hindenburg airship, photographed by Sam Shear in May of 1937. The image refers to the origin of the band's name itself, when Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and The Who's Keith Moon and John Entwistle were discussing the idea of forming a group. Moon joked it would probably go over like a lead balloon. Entwistle reportedly replied, "Yeah, a Led Zeppelin." The album initially received poor reviews. In a stinging assessment, Rolling Stone magazine asserted that the band offered little that its twin, the Jeff Beck Group, didn't say just as well 3 months ago, and called Page a limited producer and criticized his writing skills. It also called Robert Plant as foppish as Rod Stewart, but nowhere near as exciting. Regardless, the album was a commercial success. It was initially released in the U.S. on the 12th of January 1969 to capitalize on the band's first North American tour. The album reached number 10 on the Billboard chart and earned its U.S. Gold certification in July of the same year.
So within the first year, the album reached gold?
Yeah. We're talking like 7 months. It was released in January and went gold in July.
You know, what I love most about that part of it is that the naysayers, Rolling Stone magazine, they don't get their stuff right. And I think there must be some sort of issue there. Like, you know, if somebody's got a hair, you know, growing inward. But they totally disrespected Robert Plant, which was coming out of nowhere. And Jimmy Page, which was in the Yardbirds, that was a notable session guitarist at the time and a member of the Yardbirds. I mean,
well, it just kind of, to me, goes to show that the critics don't always have their finger on the pulse. I mean, because all they can do is give their opinions and compare it to what they've heard before. But come on, to compare Robert Plant to Rod Stewart? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there's any comparison. And that's not to say that one is better than the other, just that they're different people. They're different styles and different singers.
I could see a little bit of their argument in retrospect, in that you have the Jeff Beck group wailing, and Jimmy Page, because the Yardbirds had, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and then finally Jimmy Page. So they had this lineup of awesome guitarists go through the Yardbirds until they finally dismantled. And like you said, it was Jimmy Page that took the contract. How was that?
Yeah, Jimmy Page ended up with the rights to use the band name, the Yardbirds, but not quite in exchange for that. He also ended up with contractual obligations to do a series of concerts in Scandinavia.
And that's how that evolved.
And that's how that evolved. I mean, you know, he was contractually obligated to get these concerts done. So it was kind of a, all right, you want to be the Yardbirds? Go for it. Oh, by the way, you got a concert next month. Huh? You know, that kind of thing.
Well, for those of you that have never heard the album in full and are running across this for the first time, go check out Led Zeppelin 1. It's a mind-blowing experience. If you have, you know what we're talking about. I think that's fair, right?
It's very fair. A lot of people will point to albums and say, this changed everything. Led Zeppelin, love them or hate them, because they weren't for everybody. You have to admit they did change everything. They were not afraid to experiment, and every track on every album is proof of that concept. So that ends our retrospective on the Led Zeppelin debut album. Come over and visit us at the trampledunderfootpodcast.com website. You'll find a contact us link where you can leave us any comment or question or show suggestion you'd like. While you're there, click that Wayback Machine link where you'll find past episodes filled with all kinds of fun stuff.